Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called The Sound of Distant Guns, written by Commissar Cactus. The year is 2170, and the war is almost 2 years old. A letter comes today. There's only one sender that uses physical letters anymore, and only 2 reasons why people get letters from the government these days. You'll be going very far away, to camps and fields under strange skies. You may not ever see the ones you love. You whisper a prayer to what's above. You try not to squirm as your hair is shaved to almost nothing. You stand in line for hours on end, receiving your fatigues. It'll be 2 weeks before you can even touch a rifle. The instructors give you barely any sleep. You take your rest wherever you can get it. 2 months later, you're being deployed. The troop ships are cramped, with low ceilings. You sleep in a pod that barely looks big enough to fit a large dog. They drill you even more during these days of travel. You take a shuttle ride down to the latest front, a planet called Starkheza. You are one enlisted man out of almost 3 million on this planet alone. This is the army. The first thing you hear is the sound of distant guns firing as the transport truck brings your platoon to the trench lines. You have a lot of digging to do, and the pounding of heavy artillery accompanies your work. You see your first alien, and you pull the trigger 3 times. No idea if you hit the damn thing, but there's always more behind it. You keep firing until the sergeant tells you to stop. Your first battle is over. The big guns still fire. Even from a kilometer behind you, they rattle the air. The campaign goes on for months. You watch as a man's jaw gets shot out, his tongue hanging numb and limp out of a plasma-charred wreck of flesh. You watch as a shell-shocked tank driver tries to retrieve his right leg from inside his burning vehicle, comrades pulling him away. You argue while on watch duty about whether that alien leaning on the wire is dead already or just bleeding out quietly. You fight many more battles. You fall asleep to the sound of distant guns. The year is now 2174, and the war is still going badly. You take some solace in the fact that there have been no vast trench lines since Starkheza. You ride in an armored personnel carrier now. You just stare at the inside of the vehicle for hours, checking your rifle over and over between naps. You hear the artillery guns firing. The 156s are really going at it now. The enemy respond with their own big guns. And you just listen as the armored carrier rides towards the sound of shelling. You don't get panicked in combat now. You just shoot and follow orders. You try to stay alive and kill the damn slaving aliens before they can get you. So far, it's worked. Half of the squad aren't the same soldiers you started the war with, but you managed to stay alive into the 7th year of the war. You've only seen your family in person twice, in the breaks between campaigns that High Command allowed so the troops didn't go insane. They write you every week, ordinary messages of their daily lives and their worries about you that let you remember what it's like to not be at war. Your better half sends letters too, almost every day, and you respond. You can only get them in big monthly chunks when the courier ships come, so you save them all and read 1 message each day. You keep the backup storage chip in a pocket next to your heart. There's no way you could stop a gunshot, but it keeps you closer together than apart. You think of them when you have doubts. You think about what would happen to them if the enemy got to your home planet. Those thoughts are what drive the rifle stock into your shoulder when the alien warriors crest the hill. You sleep in a foxhole, using your shrapnel coat as a blanket, and the cannon fire thunders on. The year is 2176, and the war is going better. You barely recognize anything on this planet. The buildings, the roads, the fields, none of it is human. The shell craters are universal, though. You recognize bombardment everywhere. There's people, too, alien ones. They run and hide mostly, but you hear from the comrades that they can't be trusted. You've always known to sleep with your rifle. Now you keep your bayonet in your hand, too. You storm buildings, farmhouses, transit tunnels, anything that the lieutenant orders. You're a sergeant now, with your own squad, 11 others to keep alive. You manage to go through the battle after battle with only a few casualties. Others aren't so lucky. You remember the scorched stump at the end of the gunner's arm, and the whimpers of so many dying men. You just try and endure it. That's always been your strength, the strength of every human. The enemy tires, the enemy collapses, the enemy falls over and dies, not you. That's why you know you'll win this war. You see the org troopers, the super soldiers, the Echo class, whatever name you feel like calling them today. They've been more active in these last few months. Single squads spearheading assaults for entire mechanized battalions. You mopped up after their fights a couple of times. It's interesting to see what a shot pistol does to an alien nobleman from 2 meters away. You've gotten better, too. Mindlessly shooting is for fresh conscripts, and you're a sergeant. You manage your squads, 2 fire teams constantly. You make sure the tech trooper finds threats with the microdrones before the threat finds you. You see obstacles demolished, tanks wrecked, and artillery called in, all in pursuit of victory. In pursuit of an end to the killing. The locals are a mixed bag. Citizens are unpleasant, if not hostile. Serfs are just apathetic. But the slaves are often partisan allies. Good ones, too. One time you never would have considered saying that about an alien. Things change. The local aliens don't seem to like seeing their government change, and their city's shelled, though. And you keep close watch when the squads has to bunk down for the night in a housing block with a few dozen serfs and citizens. You finish reading today's letter from home, grip your rifle and blade tight, and fall asleep to the sound of the big guns pounding. The year is 2184. People say the war ended years ago. You have a family of your own now. You never touch a rifle outside of bi-weekly militia meetings. You have a bed now, not a foxhole or a dugout. It's supposed to be peacetime. You still fall asleep, hearing the sounds of distant guns. End of story. Story number 2. The Art of Not Fighting Humans, written by Dutch Guy Waffle. She sat down in the comfortable chair, not quite sure what she'd expected from the office of one of the former Lord Admirals of the Navy. It certainly wasn't the small room full of bookcases and artifacts she found herself in. She took a good look at the man himself, noticing the lightening of feathers around his eyes, showing his age and wisdom according to old Mokati culture. "Thank you for allowing me this interview, Lord Admiral Carico," she said, dipping her head slightly. "I understand it's a bit of a sore subject to you." The man sent her a smile, his small fangs on display in a rare show of openness. "Please, Miss Iraq, it has been a long time since I held that title. Just Carico will suffice." She nodded. "All right. Mr. Carico, do you mind if we begin?" He waved his hands. "By all means." She took a moment to compile her questions, activate a recording program, and take a deep breath. "Mr. Carico, thank you for having me. You were the lead admiral in the Gamma Equina cluster campaign, and you described this in your new autobiography, The Art of Not Fighting Humans. Can you give us a quick summary of the factors leading up to the conflict?" The former admiral sat back and looked out of the window. 2 decades ago, we came into conflict with the Federated Systems, the human government, over a small cluster to our galactic east. It was a small cluster, but very strategically important. The one who held it would have access to several jump points into the other space. Suffice to say that when the humans staked their claim, the assembly reacted badly. He looked at her again. There were some token negotiations, but in the end, the politicians trusted the military more than the diplomats. He chuckled. It never ceases to amuse me how quickly they changed their tune. So you immediately declared war on the federated systems? He took a moment to gather his thoughts. Yes, but I think it is important to nuance that statement a bit. She looked at him curiously. How so? He shifted in his seat. Well, war in those days meant something else to us. We were expected to go into the cluster, fight some token battles, and then take the system and the industry with minimal loss of life. That is how it had gone between major galactic powers for centuries, you see. We knew the humans were militarily inferior, so we didn't expect the strategic kibosh we found ourselves in, if you'll excuse my language. I see. So what happened that turned the campaign into such a kibosh, as you put it? He took another moment. Have you ever heard of the Quintus Flavius Maximus? She shook her head, motioning for him to continue. He was a human military tactician who lived several millennia ago. He famously avoided battle with a feared enemy opponent. Herrick frowned. Excuse me, he avoided battle? How did that help him win? Well, what he did was deny the enemy direct confrontation, harassing him as he chased down his army. This way he preserved his own forces, while weakening the enemy. Right. And this is what happened in Gamma Equina Cluster? She asked. Yes, to an extent. The leader of the human forces, Commodore Ruth Beatty, if I remember correctly, knew she couldn't face us in open battle with her fleet of light patrol vessels. All she had was a heavy cruiser and 2 light carriers as front-line battle units. But when we jumped in, there was nobody there except automated weapon platforms and mines. He shuddered and his feathers rolled over his head. And the drones, of course. Those never damned enough drones. Did you know that a human light carrier can hold up to 3,000 combat drones? Absolutely mad, I tell you. Noticing that he was getting slightly off topic, she directed him back. And how did this impact the campaign as a whole? It slowed us down, mostly. We thought them cowardly and craven for fleeing from battle. A battle that could end the war in one go. But they seemed adamant on bleeding us for every light second we took. Every time we entered the system, the human fleet, if you can call it that, was already leaving, having filled the system with minefields, drones, jammers, and the like. We lost most of the light units like that. Never mind the raids. The former admiral shook his head. It was, frustrating, to say the least. Harrowing, even. Harrowing? How? Imagine the following, Miss Herrick. You are on a ship, a battleship, and the mighty assembled navy. Almost untouchable, unless the enemy has ships of equal size, or a ship killer. You might be safe, but the other ships aren't. Imagine people, friends, family, what will you? On smaller ships dying to traps and hostiles that are gone before you can orient the guns enough to do anything about them. They are dying, and you can do nothing about it. There was a new glint in his eye, almost mad. That sounds, I don't have the words for it. Exactly. The man seemed almost happy that he had someone to share the pain with. Not so strange I retired after the war, is it? Definitely not, sir. But why do you call it a debacle? The human fleet was destroyed in the Battle of Galatia 11-3, and mostly due to your strategic genius. He huffed. Strategic genius. Is that what they call sacrificing 10,000 lives to kill a fleet of 3 ships and their escorts? The only reason we got them into direct battles was because there was a dockyard there. Thousands of civilians. They couldn't not protect them. He sighed, the feathers by his mouth rustling. I lost 7 cruisers, 12 frigates, and most of my corvette screen to the trip and that battle. Believe me, it wasn't a victory. It's a 30-year ceasefire. He sagged. Believe me when I tell you, Miss Iraq, you don't fight humans. Humans fight you. End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.